You say we, you're not Ukrainian, but you apparently are going back over there to fight for their freedom.
Sure. I'm not Ukrainian, but they made the call for assistance from the international community. And I'm just one soldier from 56 countries that are members of the International Legion for the Territorial Defense of Ukraine. And, what's happening in Ukraine, I call it the Eastern Wall or the Eastern Theater in the battle to defend democracy. But every once in a while, I turn around, I look back home, and I go, what the heck is going on back there, right? The Western Wall is starting to crumble. And this book, which I finished a year ago, is just coming out now. And it turns out it was fortuitously, came out at the same time as the January 6th committee. But it didn't stop at January 6th. I started this book before January 6th. We have a long haul to go. And this book,
my goodness,
will tell you how bad it could get.
As I'm reading it, I'm thinking race war, Charles Manson. You, of course, bring in Timothy McVeigh, and it's all race. It's all like I'm reading Nazis versus gangsters versus Nazis. It's all race, and it shows up as Nazis. It shows up as Vikings. It shows up as Russians. Russians, yes, Romans, Proud Boys, Boogaloo Boys. But it's all about maintaining this whiteness. And the fragility of that, because it is a made-up construct, is inevitable, right?
Yeah, this is absolutely, without any question, a war of white supremacy. And the thing is, it's not a war of white supremacy on just Blacks, Hispanics, Latinos, and Jews. It's a war on women. It's a war on anyone who does not believe that there should be a white nationalist race, what they call race traitors. That phrase is coming back into the norm. They believe that, many people, when the time comes, when the storm is upon them, that people who cooperate, who are white, who protect the rights of Blacks and others, should be branded race traitors and hung from nooses on light poles. This is a fantasy. Many of them harbor, right? Day of the Noose, or the storm, as the QAnon ideology calls it. The day that every liberal is rounded up and put through trials or just summarily executed. This was insane 4 years ago. Now that insanity is motivating and is the main force of the Republican Party, because their base has been completely taken over by the QAnon cult and the Trump cult.
So what do we do? As you point out so aptly, and this is chilling, they are 50 to 100 times more armed. You point out, I believe chapter 6 or 6, the police, like 1 in 5 military people, 1 in 4, at the Capitol. There were a couple of police officers that were also among those that stormed the Capitol.
Numerous.
They're in our government, of course. So most of us who live our lives thinking this could never happen, this is not, it's not that bad. It's just a handful of nut jobs. What is it that we need to know? And then how do we protect ourselves?
Well, the number one way you protect yourself is to understand that this November, we are having an election, which is an election, let me put it this way, an existential election. If the House of Representatives or the Senate or both falls, it is the end of American democracy. They have made it eminently clear what they plan on doing. They've said they will impeach Joe Biden every week, Kamala Harris, Supreme Court justices, anyone that opposed them. The Republicans will put Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene in charge of committees. And she just said yesterday, Lauren Boebert, that they will go after and prosecute every person who took part in the investigation of the January 6th committee. This is a police state they're talking about. And this is what I warned about in the pre-election 2020. They and their armed supporters will think that they are the brown shirts. They are the unofficial armed the unofficial armed wing of the Trump insurgency. And that they'll be able to come out on the streets and cops won't stop them. They will run government. Only this time there won't be any governing. It will be ruling over 65% of the American public with force at their fingertips. Now, of course, we wouldn't do that. We don't do that. The average person, the average progressive, the average, center right Republican, they don't think like that. You are not dealing with center right Republicans here. You are dealing with Titus, the Trump insurgents in the United States. These are the people that believe they are part of a tribe. Donald Trump is their tribal chief, and whatever he says goes. And if they think that, finally time to use their AR-15s and start mass murdering people or taking over government buildings or trying to seize armories, I suspect they'll do it.
You aptly laid this out as you're saying this. For those who say, Malcolm, Nance, you've gone too far. Remind folk that you predicted Trump like masterfully, that you predicted Russia, doing all of its hacking and all of that misinformation campaign. Just give us a little reminder of the things that you wrote about before they happened.
Oh my God.
Just a little.
My Nanstradamus phase.
Yes.
Well, I the funny thing is that I actually commented on air about many of these things. There was that rumor in January or February 2016 that the Russians had 20,000 of Hillary Clinton's emails. And I actually went on air with Chris Matthews on Hardball. And I said, there's no way this story is true. The only way this story is in the media is the Russians released it to this little blog and they want the media to run with it. And within a month, it was in Fox News's hands. Judge Napolitano was saying the Russians have Hillary Clinton's emails. And it was all part of an operation to get Donald Trump elected. And I went on air and said that. And I know that when I said that on July 25th, when I said this is a Russian intelligence operation to win the election for Donald Trump, people went at me hard. News media people, well, do you have evidence for that? And I'm like, hey, the evidence is there. I'm a spy. This is an intelligence operation. 2 days later, Trump goes, Russia, if you're listening, get me the 30,000 Hillary Clinton emails, which was the story we had all heard back at, not we, a few of us had heard back in January. And it had trickled his way up to Trump to the point where he believed it. Then the Russians started hacking for him. I mean, I could go all day about stuff that I said that I was right about and that the news media is relatively slow about. I mean, I wrote Plot to Hack America in 5 weeks and got it out 6 weeks before the election. And the next book on the Trump-Russia scandal took 26 months to come after that. And it was written by 2 journalists. So as one person said, a long, slow read of Plot to Hack America, 2 years too late. So, I'm not here to pat myself on the back. This book,
No.
They Want to Kill Americans, is a warning. You need to buy it. Your listeners need to read it.
Yes.
And a lot of it, I'm afraid to say, keep it on hand because it may end up being the manual and the playbook you'll want to reference when one of those critical events happens.
Was January 6th a trial balloon to see what they could get away with?
No.
Okay.
January 6th. And I wrote extensively about this because I'd started this book before January 6th. And we started seeing the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, the 3% militia coordinate in November and December 2020. And it was clear that they were getting together to mobilize a force of people larger than them, but they wanted to be the leaders and the people that would steer the direction of all of these angry Americans. And they were. It wasn't a trial balloon. It was a failed trial balloon, a failed balloon. But now they know how to do it. January 6th now is a template. But they're not going to come back to the Capitol. They're not going to do that again. They will go to every state capital.
I was going to say
friendly state capitals, and they will take them over, and the governor will come and support them, and maybe turn the state troopers out to side with them. Or when the National Guard is sent in, order the National Guard to stay on the side of the armed protesters. That right there is where you get civil war.
So we already have, as I mentioned before you came, Texas, which is a state ruled by the minority. Georgia, which right now is a state ruled by the minority of the people. Florida, ruled by the minority. And so as we go through, you're setting the table. Those governors are very friendly.
Yes. And they want to be ruled. You know, you use the phrase ruled by the minority. The phrase you should really use is rule over the majority. They are using their governorships to lord over people. This is like Game of Thrones now. Okay. When our army reaches your place, you comply and surrender, we just kill everybody, period. Well, in this particular instance, these people believe that as 30% of the population, they will control the outcomes for the other 60%, 65% of the country, because 40%, or let me rephrase that, 50% of the electorate is too lazy, tired, busy, and non-involved to come out. And our job is to mobilize 10 or 20% of that. If we had 10% of the people that didn't vote in 2020, this would be a massive wave election. And some groups like Indivisible and others go, oh, we're only going to do vote mobilization and turn out the vote. That's not where you get the votes. You get the votes by educating people well in advance that it is going to hurt for them if the Republicans win. Social Security, Medicare, free guns for everybody, right? I mean, it is
the environment. We already see Joe Manchin was like, nope, I like this coal, and I don't care about the climate because I'm old anyway.
Again, and 10% more, we would have 4 or 5 Democratic senators. We can allow them, Kirsten Sinema and him, to go join the Republicans where they belong. But you know, and or get them to the point where they have no power and they have to beg us for favors. This is entirely on the Democrats' ability, not just the Democrats, independents, Republicans who love their country, or as I call them, it's incumbent upon the real Americans, the rest of Americans, to finally show that this is it. This election, you need to have a turnout bigger than 2020. But because don't forget, 81 million people turned out in 2020 to vote against Donald Trump and for Joe Biden. But most of them, many of them, did not vote down ticket. And we lost 15 seats in the House of Representatives and came within 6 seats of losing control because people wouldn't tick down. We could wipe away all of these right-wing run state assemblies if you vote for the Democrats in your district for every position, from dog catcher to president, and we can win.